Welcome to the Gateway, broadcasting from the edge of the Mojave where the strange slips through the cracks. We are live on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM, New Orleans. And I'm your host this evening, C.L. Thomas. How is everyone out there? Happy Veterans Day. Tonight I'm going to have Michelle Desrochers, television personality and international public figure who has been professionally and actively researching the unexplained for over 2 decades. And we're going to discuss haunted locations from war times. But before we get into that, you've been listening to Into the Night with Sean Kelly. He comes on again on Sundays at 5 p.m. Pacific. Sometimes I join him, sometimes not. We shall see. He did ask me to be a part of his show this Sunday, so maybe I'll make an appearance or maybe not. Who knows? It's currently 67 degrees here in the Mojave. Again, happy Veterans Day, and thank you for all of those. Seriously, thank you for all of those who have served. Tonight, we are going to talk about haunted locations in honor of the veterans. So if you have a story to share and you're online, please share it in the comments. Let's get Michelle on here.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I always have such a great time with you.
Sometimes I'm a terrible host, so we'll see how this goes.
I don't think so. If you're a terrible host, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, it's always something though. Like last week, I had Todd Bates on and completely forgot to hit live.
Oh no!
Their intro. Yeah, 10 minutes later into
He's a good sport.
So. Yeah, we're still laughing about it. I have a funny story about him. He's another radio guy. And when I first started, I got this microphone set and everything. And there's a little, I don't even know what you call that, switchboard thingy. And he helped me hook it up. But we couldn't figure out why the microphone wasn't coming on. And, we went back and forth. And I ended up calling a guy from LA who he does like TV shows and stuff. And yeah, the microphone wasn't plugged in.
It happens to everybody. I started my show today and I didn't realize it wasn't on. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm just a talking head and my guest is going, wait. See, it happens. So, yeah, I just made the excuse. Sorry, Tuesday's my Monday. So, here we are.
I just don't have that kind of an excuse though on Tuesday evenings, I should be ready to go, and it's just not like that though.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I was like 2 p.m. so I could still probably get away with it. Pretty sure I did.
So it's been a long time since you've been on my show. We haven't been able to catch up in a while.
Yeah. Oh, it's been busy, because I have a third show now. Because I got so backed up with the main show that I thought I needed I would take care of overseas guests, right? Instead of pre-recording, I would just do a live show. And in all honesty, I had another friend and past guest who wanted to do a show once a month. I'm like, no problem. I'll do the other ones. You do this one. Then she goes, oh, I don't have time yet, so I'm full time. So it's like, okay. And now the both shows are booked up. So it's like, okay, here we are. Yeah. But
I have to get on the ball with mine. I'm currently booking guests right now through January.
Wow, that's excellent.
So suggestions. If you're listening out there and you have a great guest or you yourself would be a great guest, let me know.
There we go. Say, guys. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's been great. And lots of good stuff, lots of interesting stuff happening. So I was very excited to be on the show tonight because I love the topic. So, much gratitude and much respect to all of our veterans out there. Boy, I bet you if they knew ultimately what they were fighting for now, they might have kind of went, you know what? But anyway, that's another show. So big heartfelt thank you, Jojo, if you're listening. Thank you for your service. So people don't realize Joe, the owner of our network, was served in the Navy, and yeah. So there we go.
My brother and best friend from another mother has also served in the Navy, as well as his wife.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's tough. Navy life. Wayne's father, which we could start off with that story if you want.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I don't know one wartime location that's not haunted.
Right. Well, you have to think about, all
Mhm.
of the energy and that transpires there. Let's face it. It's a matter of thinking about why you're there, the emotions, the fear, the adrenaline, all of that stuff comes into play. Um, and I don't think people understand that death itself leaves one heck of an imprint in time and space. The release of the essence, um, especially under certain conditions. And then if you have them who die very suddenly or tragically, a lot of them remain behind. And of course, because of that imprint as well, you're going to have a lot of residual stuff going on. You have the mix of just about everything when it comes to some of these locations.
It's interesting, especially a battlefield or something like that where you had like 66,000 people or more
Yeah,
at one time.
I know. And you think about, the world wars, think about Civil War. The United States has
Oh, yeah.
had,
Yes.
right? Like,
Very familiar with that
uh,
one.
yeah, right. So, I mean, right, and that's on home soil.
Mhm.
So, Canada's the same, right, with the US. So, yeah, I think we need to factor a lot of that in when you're going to some of these places and people who go and visit, the sense that you feel when you're visiting these places. Like I've spent time, I've been to different battlefields, and Gettysburg is one that stands out the most because it was just so. I mean, it was all tragic. There's nothing that isn't tragic about war, but
Yeah.
just taking the time. And you've been to Gettysburg. You do the circuit. You just drive around throughout the different the park, and it's got the different monuments that represent the different states and the stories. And you start getting into all of that, and you just feel that heaviness. And there's an influx of stories that comes through. We can start there. You tell me where you'd like to start, and I'm happy to just take it wherever it is you'd like to take it. But um,
We can definitely get into the Civil War stuff because that is so prevalent. But you came on with a story already.
I
So,
did. This one was given me. This one was given to me by Wayne, and it's pretty much a cursed ship. So as the story goes, I'll read it out and I will try to get through it. It's not too bad. It's just the writing looks probably worse than it is. So sometime during World War II, my dad, who was in the Royal British Navy, served on the Icarus, told me a story about a ship that had a bad reputation. I like that. It wasn't a fighting ship, but more in keeping with the merchant marine vessels. There were numerous accidents aboard that ship. Many men would, slip off or fall overboard, while others were injured while performing various duties. After some time, other sailors would be weary of the ship, and because they get very superstitious, right? At the time that he was talking about it, so many times the ship would leave port and suddenly have to return due to all of these mechanical failures, which seemed to plague the vessel. After the war, it was sold a number of times to various countries, but never stayed in one place very long. It ended its days as a cable laying ship that would be part of a fleet of vessels that would lay undersea phone cables. During one of its first outings, after being refit for this new task, the entire reel of cable detached from the cradle and fell off the back of the ship. It was a costly loss. So the ship was finally sold for scrap at the breaking yard, where the ship was gradually disassembled. Two skeletons were found in between one of the lower bulkheads. They found pails of rivets and riveting tools at the same area. One skeleton was that of an adult male, while the other was that of a youth. And it was concluded that these bones belonged to two of the many laborers and his apprentice. So hundreds of men were employed during the war to keep the supply of ships coming in. And it's believed that during the deafening noise that is inherent with shipbuilding, that these two individuals were somehow closed into a tight space between the two walls that made up the cargo holes. So it sounds like maybe this is where all the bad luck came from. The cursed ship, the haunted ship. There we go. And that's not even in battle. So thank you, Wayne, for that story. It's a gem. Yeah. Very
Well,
sad.
a lot of times these ships don't even have to be in battle, though. And just because they're commandeered by like Queen Mary, for instance.
The same idea,
Mhm.
right? Didn't somebody get walled up in between?
So the story is, for those that don't know, the Queen Mary was commandeered by the military
Yes.
to bring her World War II people.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so they painted the whole thing gray, and they called it the Gray Ghost because
Yes.
they couldn't see it at night. And they would zigzag this thing across the ocean so that it wouldn't get hit. But during one of those trips, there was a guy working down in the engine room, and the doors, for some reason, one of the watertight doors closed and caught him in it, like sideways.
Wow.
So he
See?
got crushed in there.
Yeah. See? Right there. There's a lot of ghosts. I have some stats. So, so she carried more than 800,000 troops, traveled more than 600,000 miles. I would backtrack. She was built in 1930 at the John Brown Shipyard in Clyde, Scotland. Just so people know. So, she played a significant role in pretty much every Allied campaign, survived a collision at sea, set a record for carrying the most people ever on a floating vessel, being 16,683. I can't even imagine.
I know, I can't either. Imagine them all stuck in there like that.
Right. I know. It's sardines. She participated in a D-Day invasion. She did 1,001 transatlantic crossings. Now, what about the ghost? She has apparently, now this was when I, did the last show about this. We're going back now to probably 2020. So some of this could have changed by now. But as of then, she has 49 recorded deaths. It's believed that there are as many as 150 different spirits that call her home. It's said to be one of the most haunted locations in the world. It's reported that a crew member who was crushed to death by a watertight door still lingers about. There's a woman who dances by herself in one of the luxury suites. Several adults and children in 1930s garb have been seen wandering the pool decks. And there are many reports slamming doors, drastic temperature changes, knocking screams, lights flickering on and off, children crying, and wet footsteps in the pool area.
That's interesting. Have you ever been on that ship?
I have not, and I have been invited on a couple of different occasions, and I would have loved to have done it when I was down that way. I just did not have the time to do it. Have you been? Of course, you've been. And share
by accident, though. So Nicole had written in. Nicole Strickland, she's a fellow author and she loves the Queen Mary. She did a big spread on the Queen Mary for Erie Expeditions magazine.
Yeah.
And so I just happened to be in town shortly after that, and she set me up with a tour guide who took me through the Queen Mary one-on-one. It was pretty cool. And
I guess so.
We heard footsteps in the engine room. We heard voices down in the pool room. Just all sorts of things happened while we were there.
Yeah, I hear it's quite extraordinary. I own a life coat from the Queen Mary.
Wow.
I know, weird things find me. I find them. So, yeah, I do. And it makes you realize how much smaller people were back then, because you look at this thing which is supposed to be an adult life coat, and it's quite heavy, for what it is. And I mean, I'm thinking I could probably, put it on a child, but apparently it's an adult one, and I'm just like, it's crazy when you look at it. I'll have to find it, take a picture, and send it to you.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful piece of history. I'm really I'm really happy to have it. So because I love that sort of stuff.
Well, the Queen Mary, I didn't know what to expect at the time because I never really got into the haunted ship thing, but that one, it just
Hmm.
blew me away.
Right.
Story about her just blew me away.
It's extraordinary, and I think that when you look at a lot of the ships, because I think there was another one that is the USS Constitution,
Do you know the story on that one?
of course.
Of course you do.
Just for you. So, the USS Constitution, aka Old Ironside, was launched in 1797, went on to be commissioned in the War of 1812. That's really old.
Ooh.
She's literally the oldest commissioned warship. She is currently docked along Boston's Freedom Trail. She has the most venerated career by any US warship, and has even gained a mythical status. She she has fought off pirates. She went head on with Britain's HMS Guerre in 1812, astounded sailors on both sides with her resilience. And as cannonballs bounced off her hull, one British soldier was said to say, "Her sides are made of iron." But the story is that objects here have been, you'll see objects, cannonballs. They just been seen rolling across the deck with no apparent reason, including a 20-pound cannonball, or 24-pound. Soldiers have been seen and heard all along her decks. And again, just the typical stuff, footsteps and flickering lights and things like that. So it's an extraordinary piece of history with, again, are you looking at something residual, or are you looking at something that's really happening, and soldiers are still there taking care of her?
That's so interesting. Just on a side note, do you know what HMS means, anyone?
Go ahead. That was American.
HMS is, I think it's Her Majesty's ship. That's what that means, Her Majesty's ship. And then the other one, RMS, what is that one? One of them means Royal Mail or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Royal Mail Service or something.
Yeah. It's crazy when you say Her Majesty's ship, because
Mhm.
you would think that that would be British, but here she is. She fought against the British, and she's docked in Boston. So it is very cool. I really love these things. And I think aside from that, you end up with, sailors in general being so superstitious with their ships, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of, especially in the Boston area. I don't know any of the tales, but I've heard about them along the way. I just don't remember them.
Right. Well, it's just, like they don't sail at certain times, and back then, like, they didn't want women on the ship. That was bad luck, right? So there's all kinds of.
Females though.
I know. I know. I don't know. Now of course it's just like, well, you know. But yeah, it is interesting, some of the old tales and superstitions, and but I don't know. It's a great ship. There's something about ships. I feel more, I think, for people who have to be in submarines, because
Oh man, that's
do you
I,
remember the Kurtz, when that went down, the
I
Russians?
don't.
Oh my goodness, it went down, and it had everybody, like everybody was in it, and I remember the whole world. This is a Russian sub, and they just didn't want anybody interfering. And there were, um, even the U.S. agreed to help. The whole world came together because it sank, and they were hearing knocking. They knew people were alive in it, and they eventually retrieved the whole thing. But months later, everything intact. Just
Oh man. Oh, that's
heartbreaking.
terrible.
Yeah, it's just like a ready-made tomb, you know? It's just whenever you see one, you're just like, "Oh, I should just." It's final. Something happens, it's so final. Mind you, same with the ship. Wayne was telling me a story again today, and that, his dad, they were the lead ship, and there was a whole conga line, mile worth of ships coming in behind them, single file. And all of a sudden, the one right behind them just went, it was obliterated. There was nothing left but foam. Like it was just, must have been carrying weapons and must have hit a mine or must have been targeted. And the impact just blew their hats right off. His dad was on the back of the ship and they were just watching all of this and there was nothing left. Nothing.
Oh, man, that's
So,
terrible.
yeah. But Wayne says, yeah, the women on ships came from the idea that the ocean and the sea is female and sailors' love is always the sea first. So to put another female aboard could bring about misfortune to the men on board. See, look at that. That really helps when when you have your father who tells you these incredible tales.
Well, why do they always name the ships after women?
Yeah, Wayne, do you know that one? I know. But I mean,
Implying
yeah,
like,
in some cases, yeah, I guess so. But I mean, the Constitution, and you'd have you have Queen Mary, yeah, the Queen Elizabeth.
and the Queen Mary, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't she the sister ship of one of those others? It wasn't Titanic, was it?
You had the Britannic, the Olympic. What was the other one? The Titanic, the Olympic.
Mish says
Oh,
it's easy to blame a woman.
I know. Yeah. They do try. Yeah, so there were, I think, 3 of them, and there's a lot of conspiracy even with Titanic as well, right? That she wasn't really the Titanic, that she was a sister ship that was in much need of repair, and they just sort of switched them. So insurance.
I haven't heard that yet.
Oh, it's a good one.
Where did
That's a
you
good
go
one.
off into on
I know,
the
we just take off in all these different directions. Yeah, there's a lot to know. I mean, and we're thinking into war. We always think about World War One, World War Two, like the more modern in our recollection. But what about things like Little Bighorn, Custer's Last Stand?
Well, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, to show you how, I mean, there's been so much war on blood spilled, on American soil when you think about it. But the Last Stand Hill, the indigenous fight for their freedom, none of the troops under his command, under Custer's command, survived. 5 companies rode in with him to the attack, ensuing attempt to make a fighting withdrawal, which led to the Last Stand North with the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, and the Lakota, overwhelmed his troops. And the Crow oral history, so the Crow indigenous oral history claims that Custer may have been seriously wounded earlier in the battle with wounds in the arm, chest, and temple. Several Native accounts reported men in the 7th Cavalry committing suicide prior to the failed assault by the warriors, and that Custer himself committed suicide. And of course, that's I mean, they have their oral history, right? So
Right.
it's been proposed by scholars, given that the nature of the head wound to the left temple, his body had not been mutilated, as were the majority of those under his command, which essentially were scalped and chopped up. But here's the ghostly reports from that area. Reports on the battlefield being haunted began to surface in the 1940s. August 1976, 100 years after the battle, visitors reported sudden drops in temperature while standing on what is now called Custer Hill, where his body was found following the battle. Many visitors have reported hearing murmuring sounds. Employees and visitors have claimed to have seen mounted warriors near the site vanish when approached. Buildings on the site erected by the Park Service for the park rangers have reported strange locking and unlocking of doors. Lights have been turned on when the building is unoccupied. One employee saw an apparition in the visitor center walk right through a locked storage room. And encounters and reports seem to be increasing in recent years because visitors have claimed to feel strange tugs at their limbs while no one is around, as though they're being pulled to the ground. Because
Wow.
that would wig you out.
You
You know?
know, I've always heard, speaking of Native American stuff, a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know that it wasn't so much a big war, I guess, but there was a conflict between Native Americans and I guess it was the British around where the Bell Witch Cave is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always wondered if that's why that whole area is kind of has all those haunted legends and stuff and all the activity that's happened over the years there.
You know, it gets really crazy, I think, when you start factoring in a lot of that stuff as well. What else is on the land, right? You have people who migrate or immigrate here to the new world way back in the day, and they would bring along a lot of their traditions and their superstitions. And I mean, let's just go back to think, the movie Gangs of New York, the Irish and the Italian, and the battling that took place on that soil. And that's just because, again, two different belief systems, two different ways of lives that, I mean, it was like a lot of bloodshed. And that's not, that's just like an inner city war. How much of that went on as well?
Well, in Chicago, it's quite a bit.
Yeah, right. That's what I know. See, so so there's a lot of it. It's all over the place. It's not just like we look to war, of course, because I mean that's what we're talking about today. But you just, man, oh man, there's bloodshed everywhere.
I never even took into consideration the Native American battles that
Yeah.
took place until you mention it.
Hmm. I know. War is war. And
Do you have any? Was there any around the Four Corners area?
the Four Corners. Where is the Four Corners in U.S.?
It's
Where am I? I should know this.
yeah, I should know this too. It's like Arizona, New Mexico. Why don't I know this? I should know this.
I imagine so. Let's factor this in, okay? There's a belief that the Aztecs, for example, left the United States, like left the North, came down, into Mexico, South America, went down, and then the conquistadors came in. And it's believed everyone's like, oh, the Aztecs just made their way north. But apparently, it's starting to look as though they may just have been returning home, but chased by the conquistadors, and it's starting to look like battles may have happened along the way. And at least when they got up, into Utah area and defended their ground, which is where apparently they came from. But there's a lot that's showing that they were up there. And it's basically, the Native American people saying, no, they didn't just come here; they returned here,
Yeah,
and
that's
and
interesting.
and followed by, followed by the Spanish.
I think it's Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and
Mm.
New Mexico. That's Four Corners.
Mhm.
But I
Okay.
mean, that whole area right there is a hotbed for all kinds of strange paranormal activity.
Sure is. Arizona. So, yeah. That's a hotbed right there. I mean, just that one spot alone. You start getting into the portals and vortices, and you start looking at the UFOs, ancient history. I should connect you up with somebody. I've had a couple people on the show from there who, you know, um, Deborah Thunderbeat, who basically has a book on tours that she gives on ancient Egypt in Arizona, statues and things like that, and then John Polk, who does a lot of the UFO tours and stuff out there, and
I would
gets
love
into.
to have them.
Oh yeah, I can definitely get you on, get you guys connected. It's amazing. There's so much more than what we actually think of. There's a lot more under the surface.
Yes, there is. So we talked about ships. We talked about Native American battlegrounds.
Mhm.
What else you got?
Okay, why don't we jump into let's jump into well, let's talk about Gettysburg because
Okay.
there's so much, right? So with Gettysburg, you're getting into not just the battle. I mean, it's so loaded with spirits. You talk to anybody, people who've been there visiting. When I was there, I was in this one store. All of a sudden, all these people come filing out of the store across the street, and I'm like, they're like, "Oh my god, there was just a ghost standing right inside." Everybody saw it. I'm like, "Of course, I'm in the wrong store." I'm shopping, you know, but it happens, and this is broad daylight with thousands of people in the streets, like so I'm like, come on, and I'm like, okay, so it's one of these places where people have spotted spirits who think they're still fighting. You have these specters just walking around, loading cannons. Who maybe you only see them from the waist up. This is just something that is pretty much a regular occurrence to those who go and visit and research. But to this day, it's the story changes because there's so many haunted sites within that area. But let's look at the Jenny Wade house, and we're going back to roughly 1863. Jenny Wade, that was an incredible place for me to visit because you got to really see. This is a woman who stayed behind, by the way, to help feed some of the troops and care for them. And this woman happened to just stand up while she took something out of the oven at the wrong time, and she's taking bread out of the oven. She bent down actually, and then was struck from behind because it went through the door. And that door is
Oh.
still mounted in the kitchen today. And
Does
you
it have
can see
a
it.
hole?
Mm,
It has the bullet hole in it.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And you're trying, it's the flukiest thing. So you bend down and pretty much that's it. Like it's a 1 in a million shot. And it came a bit of a distance besides that. So it was a complete fluke. The place is haunted. It's said, to have all kinds of activity there, things, moving around. Jenny, apparently stay behind, was taking care of a pregnant sister, things like that. There was a lot of reasons to be there. And she was said to have been the only woman killed in Gettysburg in this time. So then we're getting into the National Military Park, where there are numerous accounts of soldiers sighted on the grounds. They still think they're fighting. Some of them, I've had friends who are mediums who have been there who've just said, that they would just approach her, just to be moved on. Like they were just stuck. They just confusion. Like a lot of that is very, sad. She said it was heartbreaking. I just cried. Gettysburg College, many reports of soldiers, again, even reports of stepping back in time.
Wow.
So the Cashtown Inn, the ghost of a woman dancing in the ballroom. Researchers believe that Union soldiers James Culbertson and the Company K of Pennsylvania reserves still roam the halls of the old Cashtown Inn. So while we're on Gettysburg, Savannah, Georgia, which is the northern counterpart to Gettysburg, often called the most haunted city in America by experts. I like that one, in the field of the paranormal. It was the site of the second bloodiest siege of the American Revolution, and one that was probably, they say, the least studied. So casualties included Polish nobleman Kazimierz Pulaski. The British occupied the site in the war in 1779. Joint French and American troops attacked, trying to capture the city with heavy losses to both sides. So the ghosts, the spirit of Kazimierz Pulaski, is one of the many spirits that is believed to haunt the city's famous squares. Rhode Island Quaker Nathaniel Greene, the hero of the Revolutionary War, died and was buried in Savannah following the war after his first gravesite was vandalized during the Civil War. Graves of Nathaniel and his son were lost to history and have not been located to this day. His spirit of that and of him and his son have been encountered by people when approaching a monument that was erected to his memory. Many spirits have been seen there, including that of William Jasper, a hero of the defense of Charleston early in the war. Jasper's been seen so many times in full Revolutionary uniform.
Wow, that's really cool.
Isn't that like outstanding? Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable that I mean they're still there. Like they're still just roaming. Has it been
So Utah
because
is one of those interesting cities, though, where the old graveyard from where a lot of the military was buried, it actually is covered over now
Mhm,
with houses, and I think the church is even built over it now.
mhm,
And what they did in the Civil War is they went into, like, because they had nowhere to stay and it was cold. I guess it was in the middle of wintertime.
mhm.
It does get cold in Savannah. They
Yeah,
were digging into those crypts and sleeping in them, using them as sleeping holes.
gads.
Yeah, so I kind of wonder if that's one of the, when you say his tombstone got vandalized, I wonder if that's one of them.
That could very well be. But again, like they were apparently moved from there and because they've never been located.
Oh,
So now, yeah, now nobody knows where they are. So, was it somebody that just relocated them? I mean, look how many times they did that with some of the Egyptian pharaohs.
yeah,
They were all
true.
moved to a cache of mummies were found, way off up in the Valley of the Kings somewhere. Nobody there were like 8 of them, I think, 5 to 8 of them somewhere. And that's all. The priests moved them because they didn't want them vandalized. Maybe it's the same idea.
It could be. Maybe they moved them during that time or something.
Yeah. Well,
No.
if they haven't found them, and they knew he was buried there, then yeah, it seems to make the most sense. Um, I would like to let me get back to this one. My gosh,
Sorry to interrupt. I'll be quiet.
no, that's okay. It's what you're supposed to do. I'm just wondering if I have. I'm hoping I have this with me. I may not have it all with me. Pearl Harbor. We cannot
Ooh,
do the show without Pearl
yes.
Harbor, right? Pearl Harbor, the USS Arizona, and Ford Island. So, of course, it has a long history that dates back as far as 1875 when the Hawaiian Kingdom signed I might butcher this word, reciprocity. If hopefully I got that right, treaty, and the U.S. Senate allowed the Navy to lease the lagoon as a naval base. Suffered devastating losses December 7th, 1941, when Japan attacked and thousands lost their lives. Hickam Air Force Base, which sits next to the harbor, was also attacked, and so was the USS Arizona. So the haunted reports. Okay, so we'll start with, let's say, the base first, but the oldest ghost associated in the whole area is a man named Charlie, and no one is really sure who he was, but that's the oldest report. Now, on the base itself, there have been reports with strange sounds, apparitions of civilians, visitors, soldiers, and other souls. Security forces allegedly do not like to walk the grounds at night because of all the paranormal activity. People report seeing a tremendous or feeling, sorry, of tremendous sadness, extreme pain, as well as experiencing feelings of being incredibly frightened for no apparent reason. So, the airstrip, people report a real sense of panic, strange glowing mists that float about. The USS Arizona Memorial, the bodies of her crew still rest within her sunken walls. Therefore, it's said to be the most haunted spot in the area. People have seen apparitions of soldiers on the dock over top of the vessel. Another ghost is said to wander the deck when the tide is low. Then getting into Ford Island, to this day, residents report phantom voices and footsteps in their homes, as well as objects moving and electronics turning themselves on and off. Dark shadows walk around only to vanish when approached.
Wow.
Right? That's wow.
Have you been out to Pearl Harbor?
No, I
I
have
haven't
not.
been.
Yeah, I have not. But I hear it's incredible. But again, when you think the mass amount of chaos that took place there, I mean, the people, who report feeling fear and anxiety and this sense of panic, you know that that's pretty much what these poor people were experiencing in their last moments.
Man, I don't even know what to say to that.
Yeah. I know, I know. It's one thing, as we sit here and we talk about all of these places and how we have all of this energy left behind and these souls left behind. I can't imagine for one moment what these people were feeling in that moment, because it's just war is senseless. You know,
Mhm.
there's never it's just it is. Why can't people just work it out? I mean, we got,
Yeah, it never works out
well,
that
we
way,
have our extremists, right? And we war is money. Let's face it, it is. It's big business, and
unfortunately.
yeah.
I think that's, Pearl Harbor, the reason why it strikes so much emotion like that to us years later, decades later, it's because that was on our own backyard, if you really think about it.
Hmm.
Same with the Civil War. That was played out in people's backyards. That's what
Hmm.
makes it different. It's not that it was overseas and out of sight, out of mind. It's
Hmm.
here.
It's true. I know in the War of 1812, which hit, um, you know, uh, different parts of Canada, especially through southern Ontario, near Fort Niagara, which is in the U.S. Well, you come across the border, we have three forts. We have Fort Mississauga, Fort George, we have Fort Erie, um, all haunted, all of them. Crazy, crazy hauntings. And there are people who now live, you know, not far from all of these locations. Niagara on the Lake, where two of these forts are, said to be the most haunted town in Canada, right? Because you had the earlier war. I think I can't remember. It was 1765, I think, and then we had one, 1812. But there was one gentleman who he was looking on his property. They were building the house. I don't know if he was looking at putting a deck on. I don't know what the whole story is, but they found bones from, I think, five, and I could be wrong, could be three, four, but I think it was five um, soldiers that were from the U.S. And so, he called in the authorities, and they were returned to the United States, of course, for proper heroes,
Right.
burial, and it was just a closure for the families who were just like, we just don't know what happened to them. So they were just buried, and that was it. So you hear stories like that all over the place. And it's just extraordinary, that all these years later, because I don't know, this might have happened like a decade ago, a couple of decades ago when this happened,
Mhm.
but at least they were found.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot. What about all the guys that are out there missing still? The
Oh, sure.
POWs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is everywhere. And I think, you know, sometimes I'm I'm all about researching, whatever the case may be. I love history, and I know, my roots started in the paranormal, and I think that it just has to factor in. Some people are awesome. They factor in the sensitivity,
Mhm.
of these spirits. Other people they just want to get that EVP, that photo, that
Oh, yeah.
um, and eh, I think
The
we need
ins
to
and outs.
remember that these guys, these people, you know, that they met a tragic end, fighting for us. At the end of the day, fighting for what they believed in, fighting for their country, fighting for the belief, you know, um, whatever the narrative was. I mean, civil wars is just that was real touchy one. There was just so much, so much, so much.
Yeah, Civil War, that one just devastated the entire country on
Yeah.
so many different levels.
Mhm.
There's a plantation where it's Carton Plantation, and that's
Mhm.
where the Battle of Franklin played out, and
Mm.
there was 66,000 people that died on this property alone.
Mhm.
It's just incredible, and the family was, there was a bunch of kids and stuff hiding in a basement of this
Mhm.
place, and all kinds of stuff happened. There's a barn on that property still, and
Wow.
on the one wall, they left they rehabbed the entire place except for the one wall, and it has thousands of bullet holes all through it from the Civil War.
Mhm.
You can see where the bullets back then, I mean, it would be a war crime nowadays if we use these kind of bullets. They
Mhm.
were designed with this ring. I used to find them all the time. I have a bucket of them somewhere. But
Yeah.
when they strike something, they explode.
Mhm.
So that's why
Wow.
these guys were losing their legs and everything, is because they would hit that bone and just completely
Mhm.
destroy it
Yeah.
to no repair. You couldn't just
Shatter it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really difficult. I know Wayne's saying here that with one of the forts, Fort George, was one of the ones I mentioned. He was there in a full British a man in full British military garb, just went right past him in the hallway, even said hello, then vanished right behind him.
Wow.
So, you're looking at that's an intelligent haunting. This is very aware, of the living and such. So it's tough. I've been on, the locations where there've been battle, and it's just I remember being at one and I saw a spirit man there and I moved him on. And I turned around with another 3 behind me.
Wow.
And it's just like, oh, it's like they're very, very aware of what's going on and they're stuck. But when you're asking for help, you would think that they know. Right? So is it the belief that maybe I took a life, maybe I'm afraid to move on? Because if they're asking for help, that tells me they're aware that
Mhm.
they've passed on. And here's another story that Wayne was saying. This is in Fort Niagara, in the United States, in New York. And he was there with a friend, and they were just taking photos. And she had a camera that said Canon, and someone kept trying to slap it out of her hands. Because you're aiming a cannon,
Cannon, yeah. Wow.
right? Like, we don't often think about things like that, right? You
Wow.
want interaction, that was some serious interaction. Yeah, for sure. I mean, because you're reading, this is canon, and you've got this lens. So, I mean, we have to, I think about things like that. Like, there's just a lot of things, like, even when we as researchers go in to try to do something, it's something you wouldn't think twice about. Like, you wouldn't give it another thought. Your camera's a Canon. It could be a Nikon. It could be it could be a Fuji. It could be anything. But like that interaction, like slapping it because you're aiming it in the direction that you're hearing something, and it's like, oh heck no, right?
I
He
would've never
aiming
even
that
thought of
thing
that
at me. I know. So I don't know. Like there's just so much. There's so much. Um, there was one, if we want to go over to, let's go to one that is like really popular, the Battle of Culloden, and that's in Inverness, Scotland, to which I have been. And this battle, Outlander people, here we go. Okay. April 16, 1746, the last battle was fought on British soil was here. So the last battle. British Redcoats destroyed the troops of the Jacobite rebellion under Charles Stewart, aka Bonnie Prince Charlie. Battle lasted less than 1 hour. It was too much for the Highlanders to overcome. Charles Stewart escaped and eventually went to France, remained in exile, and never returned to Scotland. The ghostly reports on the anniversary each year, it is said that the moor is haunted by the spirits of the men who died there. Sounds of barrels still clashing against steel swords, cries of pain and fear are said to be heard. Sounds of men running for their lives have also been reported. The operation of a tollman in Highlander's garb has been reported roaming about the burial sounds, or mounds rather. The locals claim that whenever birds are near or around the battlefield, they do not sing. There are many reports of spectral images seen around the Jacobite grave mounds, as well as the men on the ground as they just basically fought and fell in battle. So the sound of soldiers on the march, on the road leading to the battlefield, have been reported by locals living nearby. The stories of the ghosts of Culloden Moor often appear in local newspapers, even to this day. So that
Wow.
one's way out there, but that's for all you Outlander fans out there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all your stories tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
I feel like, we tell 5 stories and the show's over already.
I went as quick as I could too.
I hate that.
I know. It was a lot of fun though. It was a lot of fun. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Where can people find your show?
Right here, ironically, on the United Public Radio Network. So we have Beyond the Outer Realm, which is on Tuesday afternoons, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We have the Outer Realm, which is Wednesday and Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And yeah, right here.
Real quick before we end this, what makes UPRN so different than other networks out there?
We're family. That's what makes us all different. You find here, everybody just basically has everybody's back. Everybody, on an average, you can ask anybody who in a pinch. If they're around, they're there. You don't have that guest at night because they don't show up. I love you all. I love you all. But things happen. There's always somebody there, and it's got a whole array of different topics. It really does. And we've been around for over 25 years. So we were pretty much doing podcasting stuff before podcasts were a thing. So we're told that we are pioneers, and we're still kicking. So.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to be on with me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. You've been listening to the Gateway Podcast, broadcast from the edge of the Mojave at United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. My guest tonight was Michelle Desrochers. She is a fellow radio host and director at UPRN. Check out her show, Beyond the Outer Realms. The link to the channel can be found from my website at clthomas.org, or you can find it on my Facebook page. Thank you all for listening, and until next time.